Come to Prague. So are you ready for a Sandeman's tour? Yeah. Great. Right, so allow me to introduce myself. My name is Christian, as you might have figured out. And I'm from Sweden, but my dad is from here. He's from the Czech Republic. And I'm married to a lovely girl from Scotland, Sarah. So I've got a really interesting diet. Beer for breakfast, pickled herring for lunch, and haggis for dinner. Yummy. Now my dad, he left this country in 1967. There was still communism here then. He managed to get a visa to Yugoslavia, which was also a communist country at that time. And in the dead of night, he swam over a small strait in the very north of the Adriatic, which is the part of the Mediterranean that separates Italy from Yugoslavia. He ended up in a refugee camp, was there for a couple of months, didn't really know what to do with himself. He was thinking about going maybe to South Africa, maybe to Canada actually, but in the end he decided for Sweden, because of the weather. And I'll tell you about what we'll do today. We'll cover the old town, which is this area around here. We'll continue to the new town, which is in that direction. Then we'll take a short break before we continue with the Jewish quarter. And then we end up by the river. Now, I want you to ask lots of questions while we're on the tour, because that way it'll be more interesting. You can't really go wrong with questions, because if you ask me a question and I know the answer, I get to look like a genius. And if I don't know the answer, you get to look like a genius. Now, the number one question that everyone asks again and again is, how is it possible that you, Christian, as intelligent and attractive as you are, possibly can be doing these tours for free? And the simple answer is that we here at Sandeman's, we're so kind-hearted, so we think that everyone, no matter their budget, should get as much as possible out of their visit to Prague. And that is why we operate on a tips-only basis. Supple folks. So at the end of the tour, if you thought it was worth paying for, I do accept tips, whether it be in euros, Czech crowns, enriched plutonium, or phone numbers. Just kidding, I'm married, remember? But now, without further ado, let's get started with the tour. And first off, Old Town Square. Let's go, vámonos, compadre. Yeah, very enthusiastic.
You're off one of his tours.
Pronta.
That's too far.
Alright, so I'm taking you to the Old Town Square. And it's the centre of Old Town. Now this square has been the centre of civic life in Prague for most of the city's existence. In 1918, people celebrated the first independence of the Slovak Republic here. In 1945, people rejoiced at taking out the Nazis. And in 1989, people celebrated the new democracy here, and in just about every other place that serves beer, serves sausages. Now looking around yourself, you'll see lots of lovely buildings. For example, bam! The big building over there with the two towers. It's the Church of Our Lady Before Teen. It's one of the biggest and most popular churches of Prague. If you have a closer look, you can see that one of the towers is slightly bigger or fatter than the other one. Can you see that? Yeah. So one theory is that they symbolize Adam and Eve. So, which one do you think is the fatter one, the male or the female?
The female.
Exactly.
As always.
And a woman.
It's the male tower because it's protecting the female tower against bad weather. Very gentlemanly. Now, my own theory is that they simply miscalculated the budget.
Oh, yeah, did you?
Now, this church was closely associated with a guy called Jan Hus. Bam! This green guy behind me here. Now, he was a preacher during the 15th century. He was a Catholic, but he wanted to reform the Catholic Church. Now, he had two main points. The first one was he wanted Mass to be held in the local language rather than Latin, so that everyone would understand. And number two, why should only the priests get the good stuff? He wanted everyone to share in the wine during communion. However, the Catholic Church, they didn't appreciate these new ideas, and they had him burned at the stake.
Yeah.
But he was quite popular. He had lots of followers called the Hussites after his surname, Jan Hus, which means goose, by the way. They stuck around, and their struggle set the stage for major religious wars during the 15th and 17th centuries. And it all culminated in 1621 when 27 notable Hussites were executed, beheaded in front of the clock tower over there, where you can now find 27 white crosses on the ground beneath all this ice. However, they still didn't go away, the Hussites, and they've got their very own church on this square. Now that wedding cake over there is St. Nicholas Church. It was originally built as a Catholic church in 1721, and then in the 19th century it was converted into a Russian Orthodox church. But that religion was never really quite cool in the Czech Republic, so in 1920 it was finally turned into a Hussite church. Now, looking around yourself, you might believe that Prague has never been damaged during any kinds of wars, but you would be wrong, because if you look in that direction, bam, you'll see lots of silly sausage stands, but if they weren't there, you would not see the old town hall, because that burned down during artillery barrage at the very end of the Second World War in 1945, during a very important event known as the Prague Uprising. An exceedingly exciting story that I'll tell you at the very end of the tour, so hang in there. The only part of the old town hall that remain is the clock tower over there that I'll tell you a bit more about in a few minutes, and the maroon coloured slides next to it. However, before I do that, I will give you a concise overview of over 2,000 years of Czech history in less than 7 minutes, so that you can call yourself Czechexperts on Facebook. And for that, we will go in among the trees where the old town hall once stood. Vámonos, compadres.
Я говорю, Мария, ты переводишь его.
Они не закончатся, эти китайцы.